Hello, and a good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to you, the good and wonderful people of the tube. Purport today, hope you're feeling grand and all as well in your world. Hello to everybody. Today's VidPoo tube is talking about my hero and a lot of our heroes out there, Mr. John Frusciante. I've actually done a video already on this, but I looked this morning, it was 7 years ago. In all fairness, I watched the video back, which was a bit cringeworthy, to be honest with you. I don't like watching anything I do, whether it be 7 years ago or 7 minutes ago. But, basically I said everything I needed to say in that video, and this, I still believe, is a mega important part of John Frusciante's guitar playing. Feel and flow. Now, let's get into that. Again, I'm going to reiterate a lot of the things I said, I'm sure, that I said in the first video I did, years and years ago. I'm sat pretty much in the exact same spot I did that video in as well. But the first thing I spoke about in the video was feel. And how when John plays, he's feeling every note. You know, even in his dark times, when he left the Chili Peppers, at the end of the Stadium Arcadium era and also the Blood Sugar Sex Magic era, he's still feeling it. He can still feel it. He's just emoting it in a very different way. It's a very negative way. But John never just kind of sits there and plays kind of half-heartedly, if you will. It's everything or nothing with him. You can see that man lives, breathes, eats, sleeps music, and it's not just guitar, it's music in general. John is a music nut, you know what I mean? And that comes across when he plays. You can hear it, his love and passion for music. You can hear it and you can feel it. And he really knows what he's doing. And in my first video I spoke about there's no easy way to teach how John exactly plays, and I still stand by that. I don't think there is. There's no easy way to teach you how Rory Gallagher plays, or Mike McCready, or Kurt Cobain, or Peter Green, or any of these guys, Jimi Hendrix, because it's so them. We can only ever kind of approximate and kind of get where we get with them, and by watching interviews with them talking about how they play and what they feel and this, that, and the other, we can get a better understanding of what they kind of goes or doesn't go through their mind when they play. With John, he's like Jimi Hendrix and Roy Gallagher and Mike McCready. They don't think. You'll find a lot of guitarists who play from that kind of feel and flow don't think. They just play. I watched an interview the other day with Pearl Jam, and Mike McCready was saying he plays best when he's not thinking. If he has to think, it's bad. I also know Steve Ray Vaughan felt the same way, Jimi Hendrix, you name it. Most guitarists who play from that place don't like to think. They just want to play. They don't want to have to go, right, okay, so in a minute it's going to do this, it's going to do that. And you can tell that with John and the way John plays. He feels every note. So if you take, for instance, that solo, the second solo of Scar Tissue from Slane Castle. Technically, from a technical standpoint, there isn't much going on there, but from a feel standpoint, there's everything going on there. There is so much emotion and melody and just musicality in that solo, just to make you go, all right, calm it down a bit. It's so powerful. It really is. Even the first solo, the Slane Castle first solo in Scar Tissue, where again, it's very simple. It's it's technically, it's 5 notes, but mainly 4. Nearly forgot it. It's actually 6 notes, but or whatever. Doesn't really matter. But there's not much going on, but the way it fits to what's going on in the background, the way it kind of flows, is so perfect. It really is. And again, this is one of the main things when you're learning to play like John, is to understand is John, when he solos, and when he kind of plays, he doesn't, well, mainly when he solos, he doesn't do a lot of stops. You know what I mean? There's not a great deal of kind of like, it's not like a blues guy who kind of like, Peter Green, for instance, where it's kind of like... He's not playing like that. John plays like this. It flows more, and it never, and even though, like, it never stops, it's never, no, punch you in the face, there's space in there. John also does a lot of playing with time. He drags time in and out of things. So he's not playing dead on the beat. He actually does an interview where he speaks about this, talking about a 16th note pattern that guitarists will stick to. They won't necessarily be playing like 16th notes. They won't be like da 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 like that. But they'll go da 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 da. Every note they play will fall on one beat of those on that 16th note grid. Whereas people like Jimi Hendrix, they didn't do that. They would play off rhythm or make their own rhythm inside the song. And you can see that a lot in kind of like John's push and pull playing in Stadium Arcadium. You can hear it on his double tracking. And he would do stuff like this where I'll do it clean actually, where kind of like you can't get these solos like. And it's a very strange style of playing, but it's because you're not adhering to necessarily the time that's there. You're making your own. It's a lot like what rappers do. If you watch like really good rappers, they do the same thing. There's a beat going on, but they've got their own beat and they've got their own flow inside that context of the actual beat, if you know what I mean. And John's guitar playing does the same thing. Not all the time. But he does do it. And again, it comes from Jimi Hendrix. That does for John. Because Jimmy would do the same thing. You watch Jimmy at Woodstock or anything like that. Jimmy isn't always paying attention to Mitch. I mean, it's wrong. I suppose that's the wrong wording. He's always paying attention to Mitch, but he's not trying to always click in with him. He's like, right, how can I play off the rhythm that Mitch is doing? So if Mitch is going or whatever he's doing, Jimmy's like, right, well, what can I counter that with then? It isn't that, but how can I make a note fall in this different place? You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing of trying to find the right note at the right time kind of thing, which is just like, incredibly difficult. But yeah. So let me come back now. Let me just run it back into feel. So like I say, when John plays, that man's feeling every note. He feels everything he plays. You can see it in his face. And he's not pulling these faces for likes on Instagram. He's pulling these faces because it's a unconscious reaction to what he's playing. I can guarantee you, in John Frusciante's head, he is not aware of what his face is doing. In all fairness, I'm not sure John's even aware of what his body's doing when he's playing. And the same goes for Flea and Anthony Kiedis. Like, Flea and Anthony Kiedis and John, to be honest with you, when they are on stage, it comes across like they've got no control over what music is doing to them. Which is what it should always be, in my opinion. If you're pulling faces and you're moving in weird ways and you're doing certain things that look a bit stupid, but you don't know you're not even aware you're doing it, that's the way it should be. It's unconscious thought, and like Jeff Buckley says, you always play better when you're unconscious to what you're playing. And that's very true. And again, John's no different, Jimmy's not no different, Steve Ray Vaughan, you name it. These guys, they don't think. They just let it go. They just feel what the song's doing and what music wants of them in that moment, and they just relinquish themselves to it. And I talk about this a lot, and I know to some people it might sound like hippie nonsense, but it's really true. If you submit yourself to music, it takes over and it controls you, and it uses you as a marionette, which is what we are anyway, and that's what we should be. The moment we start thinking, we're cutting those strings to music, and things are no longer flow. They're no longer going to be, music's not going to be like, I can't do this. You've cut all the strings, and I can't do what I need you to do. It's one of those things. But John's always connected to it, again, because he lives, breathes, eats, you name it, music. He is just music. That's what he lives for, is music, of all different styles as well. It's not just guitar and rock and blues and funk, it's everything. So yeah, bear that in mind when you kind of like, next time you play a John Frusciante solo, really just close your eyes and listen to what he plays, and then close your eyes and play it, and just feel the notes. Just close your eyes and hit a note, and just feel, what does that note mean to you? What's that note telling you about the situation you're in right now? And how are you going to play that? Because you can play that note a million different ways. You can... Or... There's a million different things you can do with one note. I know I bent the string, so technically that's two notes, but it's still an emotion. It still creates a thing. And John is just like, when watching John play, it's like watching Jimi Hendrix play, or Mike McCready, or Peter Green. It's a masterclass in emotional, feel-based guitar playing. Be quiet. And it really is. Like, and this is another thing. This is another reason why, like, say, John's up there with me, because he's the one that connects with me more than anyone. More than Jimmy, Peter, Rory, anyone. John's playing, when I hear it, it really gets to me. It really gets to me. John's actually the only guitarist I've listened to that's actually made me cry. And I say that's the Scar Tissue solo in Red Square, the last solo. It just, I don't know what it was. It's something, it just got to me, and I just couldn't hold it in. There's some points where you just can't hold it in. People like Jimmy have come close, Mike's come close, God, all of a sudden, phone don't make any noise, press record, and all of a sudden everyone wants to contact me. But yeah, John's playing, it gets me. So that's a thing to think about when you're next, playing like, trying to channel John. Feel it. If you can't feel it, why? You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be the same emotion that John's feeling. You feel what it is for yourself. Like I say, I always get this, the I Could Have Lied guitar solo, the final one at the Budokan. He does it, when he starts it says... I kind of messed it up there, but you get the idea. There's that solo, the way that solo feels, it's so sad to me. I can feel like there's such a sadness in it, but at the same time, it's comforting. And again, this is another thing that John's soloing brings to me, is comfort. And when I hear his guitar playing, it comforts me. It makes me feel happy and safe, if you will. I know that might sound so stupid, but that's the truth. And so when that solo kicks in, it makes me think about times I've been sad or alone or depressed or whatever. But it does make me feel that, like, there's hope, and I like that. I really do. It makes me feel good. And that's why one of those like solos like that are insane. It really is something. It really is something. Anyway, so that's the feel portion of kind of this video. I could talk about that forever, but I'm going to move on now to flow. Be quiet. Unbelievable. Anyway, so let's talk about flow. So like I mentioned earlier on, John's guitar solos, they never stop once they start. And I think, again, that's the reason is John likes to stack distortions. He likes to have lots of sustain and likes to be able to kind of like, hold a note for as long as he feels he wants to hold it. And again, because he's a DS2 user, if you stop playing, this happens. If you start stacking, ain't gonna happen. It sounds awful. So you need to keep the flow going. And again, it's all about finding your own rhythm and your own kind of emotion, if you will, and submitting to what the song and music wants of you at that point in time. And again, you can, and this is one of those things. Even when John plays clean, there's still flow. There are occasions where he'll hit notes like staccato-y, but a lot of kind of like solos, it flows. He's not letting off there. He doesn't go. It's. You know what I mean? It's not staccato-y. It's got flow. It just keeps going through. And again, the same thing with guitar solos. Again, that's I Could Have Lied to You. Screwed up the intro again. I haven't practiced it enough, Pikachu. That's why. Anyway, but again, it's got flow, and he knows he can't stop because it just, no pun intended. But because it'll just go crazy, and it detracts from what's going on. I mean, there are times when John just kicks on distortion pedals and just lets it go. And just lets feedback be the solo. Again, very Jimi Hendrix. But a lot of John's melodic guitar soloing, it's just flowing. It really is just flowing and just letting his emotions out, or whatever emotions are there in that moment. Because it's really weird. I always feel that, using Scar Tissue as an example of this, if you can feel differently in the first solo to the last solo. So the first solo could make you could feel quite, oh, hey, here we go, I'll do this. And then the middle solo you could feel different. And then the last solo you could feel completely different. How you feel at the start of a song to how you feel at the end of a song is a totally different ball game. If I think of listening to, just to come off the subject of Chili Peppers, Black by Pearl Jam, that song breaks my heart every time I hear it because, I relate a lot to that song and the lyrics, especially that final verse. And it's like the way it starts and how I feel at the beginning to how I feel at the end is a totally different emotion. And this is a cool thing about John's feel and flow. You never know quite what he's going to do because you don't know what that man's feeling from one second to another, but he's totally engrossed in it and you're going to get something. It might not be as good as the last gig. It might not be as good as the gigs to come. But the fact is, what you're going to get is what you're going to get. And that's, again, Jimi Hendrix thing. Because Jimmy didn't always play Voodoo Child the same or Hey Joe the same. Because, again, you can't. You're a human being. You have to evolve. You have to keep changing things. If Jimmy was to keep doing Voodoo Child and stuff like that, just note for note every gig, it would drive him insane. Because he's a creative. And, again, and humans are creative. By our nature, we are that way. And we shouldn't be tied to doing things the same way unless we want to. You know what I mean? There are certain solos, if you think about November Rain, for instance, Guns N' Roses, you can't really change that solo. But it says, it's so perfect. It says everything it needs to say in that song. Whereas songs like Scar Tissue give you that ability to stretch and evolve and push the boundaries of what's going on. I hope this is making some kind of sense. Whereas, like, say, certain songs that are written, you can't do it because the song's so... Well, it's not a solo. It's part of the song. Whereas, like, Scar Tissue, you don't have to do the recorded solos. You can kind of make your own up and emote what you want to emote. And John changes it every time. And again, same with Jimi Hendrix. Hey Joe changed every time. Voodoo Child changed every time. Mike McCready, Alive, changes every time. Rory Gallagher, Bad Penny, changes every time. Because nothing's set in stone with certain songs. I mean, yeah, granted, certain songs require you to do the same thing over and over and over again. Because that's what the song wants. And again, this is where it comes back down to, you have to listen to what music wants of you. If the song and music want you to do the same solo over and over again, you do that. But there are songs where it's like, right, now I'm going to control you. I'm going to get some emotions out of you for your sake, or we're going to get emotions out of you for these people's sake, or for you and them. Because sometimes I'm convinced that sometimes I pick up the guitar and I'll record like a jam for YouTube or just like a standalone kind of song video or whatever. And I'm pretty much sure that I'm not playing for me that day. I'm playing for somebody else. And that theory has kind of been backed up by certain things. Like, I've played something that I don't understand why it's being beamed to me, but I'm going with it because it's being beamed to me. So I'm playing this thing. And I'll get a message from you awesome people out there saying, like, that cheered me up today. And it's like, that's what that was for then. That wasn't for me. I didn't need that, but you did. So that's what music did. It channeled it through me because, it needs us to, as conduits, to you. And John is that. John is, he's like Jimi Hendrix and these people. He's just a conduit. And it just gets to people, if you're a John Frusciante nut, you know what I mean by that, and if you're not a John Frusciante nut, your favourite guitar player gets to you for a reason, because they're a conduit for music, and music dictates everything, So, when you're playing like John, feel it, and also let it flow, and again, playing with loads of distortion helps that, because you can't stop. Again, no pun intended, but... It's just this, again, not thinking. Don't think. Just play. And again, it's all about feel and flow, man. No matter who it is, it's all feel and flow. Everything just moves in a certain way. It really does. If I just kind of do this quick. That's, again, scar tissue kind of backing track. But you know, you still, I don't know. Hope that makes some kind of sense. If you know what I mean, like, you know, it's got to flow. You've got to have it so it just does this. It's such a big part of John's playing is to have it flow. It really is. I can't stress this enough. It's so important. Like the feel thing and the flow thing is so important. Again, I said in my first video that it kind of like you don't want to be thinking about theory when you're doing it. And I agree. And I still stand by that. You don't want to be thinking about theory. You want to be thinking about, like, you know, nothing. You just want to let it go. Let everything go. And, you know, if you feel a bit insecure about doing that, then let that emotion out in the guitar playing. You know, if you feel a bit like, oh, this feels a bit weird or a bit stupid, then play that way. You know, play that emotion out. You know, because that's what it's about. That's what it's about. I mean, John feels those songs differently every night. And he'll feel them differently from the beginning to the end. Like we all do. You know, he's a human being, allegedly. And, you know, we all feel things differently. And to have that ability to emote that, however you feel in that moment, is the way it should always be. It's really, really, you know, that's what it is, you know. So, yeah, just bear that in mind. I hope this has made some kind of sense. Like I say, I wanted to talk about this more, you know, more than demonstrate, because I think talking about it can explain it better. I mean, I can show you, like, you know, certain, like, John solos, like I have done, and this, that, and the other, and examples. But the fact is, you need to understand, like, you know, that kind of, like, you know, that deeper kind of meaning of it. So, like, you know, you go, oh, okay, well, that's what that is. You know, because I can show you notes, but you might not be able to feel that, you know. It's like I can't say, like, you know, here's a John Frusciante guitar solo, you know, and or in the style of, but it's like, but I did that. I played that then for how I feel. You need to go away and play it for how you feel in the style of, you know what I mean? It's because I always think, like, you can do all sorts of different things, like I mean, I don't know if I can do this now, but. So with the same backing track, so we try and channel Mike McCready instead. Kind of, it's quite hard actually, that is. That's quite difficult. That's maybe something to work on. But you can kind of get an idea, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, if Mike played it, it'd be a lot more frantic, you know. But that's how Mike is. Mike is an intense guitar player. And this, I'm going to have to do another video on Mike at some point, because Mike's guitar playing is in very much the same vein as John's. Different style, but Mike's got an intensity to him. John has an intensity as well, but it's totally different to Mike's. And again, different to Jimi Hendrix's and Rory Gallagher's and all these other people. But, you know, there's something in this, you know, again, the not thinking. There's a reason all these guitarists say they don't think when they play, you know, and that's something to be taken on board. Less of this, more of that. And I know that might sound a bit cheesy or whatever, but it is honestly the way it is. I was the same. For a long time, I was like, no. And I was all about technique. I wanted the best technique. I wanted to be able to do this, that, and the other. And then in 2007, 2008, that changed. And it changed because I was no longer feeling anything I was playing. It was all technique. In 2007, 2008, I could sweep pick an 8-finger tap and do all this stuff. But it took me away from what I wanted out the guitar, which was, and why I originally started, which was to express myself. Sweep picking wasn't expressing me. It wasn't me, you know. And what happened was, because I'd moved away a bit from John in 2007, 2008 to again, a bit more technical guitarists. And I came back to John and Jimmy and Rory and Peter and Mike, and I was just like, I want to do that. I don't want to do and like and all this nonsense. Like, well, it's not nonsense, but you know what I mean. Like, it was to me at the time. I was like, and you know, I still don't particularly. I enjoy doing it occasionally, but I don't like it. It doesn't do anything for me. And as a result, I was like, right, well, I'm going back to trying to feel it. And I just remember the first time I let music take control. I was playing a gig at a local pub called Cobble's Bar in Louth. And we covered Black. We didn't do it a lot live, but we covered Black that night. And I don't know how long that guitar solo went on for at the end. But I remember not remembering anything of it. And then when I came back to reality, I was a bit disorientated. Because I'd been somewhere else. You know, because I'd let music take over. And I'd just been somewhere else. And I was like, ooh. And it kind of scared me. To be honest with you. At the time, I was kind of freaked out by it. I was like, and then, because when I opened my eyes again, I didn't even know my eyes were shut. Because I thought they were open. But I was seeing something else. When I opened my eyes and I noticed I was like, oh yeah, I'm in a pub. It took me a second to remember where I was. And it was really disorientating. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. You know, and Paul's that facial thing, people of the tube. You'll have a good giggle. Anyway, but yeah, it was one of those moments where I was like, oh. And then I was like, what did I just do? How did I do that? And it took me even more years to try and understand what it is. And what it is letting go. And letting music take control. Don't fight it. You know, the music's playing. Don't fight what's going on. Just go with it. And let music take over. You're a conduit. You know, you're not... There's no separation between you and this, and music, you and this, and your sound. All this is one to make, you know, to make an end product that, again, sometimes isn't for you. I can guarantee John sometimes when he plays kind of went, who was that for? It could have been for me. For all I know, the Red Square solo, the end one that made me cry, who knows? That could have been directed at me. Well, it was directed at me. When I needed it, it got to me. And again, you don't know when these things are going to happen. That song was recorded in 1999. I didn't hear it till about 2007, 8. I don't know. You know, somewhere around there. And it takes time sometimes for things to get to you, but they do get to you if you let them, if you're open to them. And just let it come through. It really is. Anyway, but yeah, so anyway, I think I've waffled on enough. I hope this has made some kind of sense. But again, just remember, feel and flow. When trying to play like John, feel and flow. Same thing with Jimi Hendrix, Rory Gallagher. None of these guys... They didn't not do that. God, I'm good at English, aren't I? Anyway, you know what I mean? Like, you know, they all do it. Like I say, John is just like, he's just that he's just so good at these lines. You know, it's so emotive, the bends. And just like the sound and everything, the way it sings and just goes, it's just, you know. Anyway. Hope it's made some kind of sense, people with YouTube. Like I say, I'll try and do some more videos on John as well. I'm really trying to get back into it because I kind of want to now. I feel like the time is right, if you will. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. But again, this is kind of a bit more of a talky video, but I needed to do it this way because I can show you John Frusciante John Frusciante solos note for note, and I can show you he does this, he does that, he does the other. But it's not enough to know what he does. You have to understand why. You know what I mean? And also, like I say, understanding the fact of like just turning off. Turn yourself off, be unconscious, let it flow. Listen and get into the music and what does it want you to do? Which invariably is just shut up and let me take control. And I'll guide you. You do what I say. You know, stuff like that. And again, that's really important. It's really important for a musician to be able to do that. Just turn yourself off. Let it take over. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed this vid, people of YouTube. I'll see you again very soon for another one. If you like the channel, like what I do, please consider becoming a patron at Patreon. Links down in the description box below. And yeah, if you fancy a travel back in time 7 years, I've got another video on this where you know, in a playlist on my channel of how to play out John Frusciante series. Anyway, thank you, see you later. Goodbye now. Thank you very much for watching.